Discover the hidden love that transformed one life, a touching story of a daughter's need for home. Emily Turner stood beneath the flickering fluorescent lights of the hospital break room, the scent of stale coffee swirling around her like a weight on her chest. She was 38, an age when dreams should feel viable. But for her, they lingered like ghosts, haunting and taunting. For years, she poured herself into night shifts and long, exhausting days, nurturing patients who managed to crack her steely facade with fragile smiles and desperate pleas. Yet, as she scribbled notes, her thoughts raced back to the unfulfilled promise she made to herself long ago: medical school. The idea felt like a distant fantasy, overshadowed by the avalanche of student debt and her mother's sacrifices that tethered her to this role. A wave of resignation washed over her as she recalled her mother juggling multiple jobs, the unforgiving grind hardening their lives into something pragmatic, yet devoid of passion. In the midst of this mental storm, a call came that sent a ripple through her mundane existence. A distant lawyer's voice delivered news of an inheritance. Her grandmother's farmhouse, long abandoned and filled with unvisited memories, belonged to her now. Emily's heart raced. Could this dilapidated structure hold the answers to her yearning? Yet the thoughts of peeling paint and memories better left undisturbed cast shadows over her excitement. Reluctantly, she drove down the gravel path. Rain hits the windshield in rhythmic drops, mirroring the patter of her own heart. Apprehension gripped her. What remnants of her family's past would she encounter? As she opened the weathered door, a rush of nostalgia enveloped her, mingling with dust motes dancing in the dim light. The farmhouse groaned underfoot, echoing tales of laughter, love, and heartache, all too much to unravel today. Sorting through the remnants of her grandmother's life felt like unearthing buried treasure mixed with chains. Between faded photographs and forgotten trinkets, she discovered an ornate wooden chest containing yellowed letters. Each letter, filled with her grandmother's vibrant dreams and unyielding love, painted a picture of resilience against overwhelming odds. As Emily read, her burdens began shifting. A spirit of determination flickered within her. Perhaps it was time to reclaim a piece of their legacy. But as she planned to restore the house, an undercurrent of doubt seeped into her resolve. At work, her colleagues exchanged glances, a mix of pity and contempt as whispers filled the air. They questioned her commitment, as if nurturing life on her own time violated her duty as a nurse. She could feel the weight of criticism mixing with her desire to bloom. Would they ever see her efforts as anything but selfish? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Each moment of progress was embroidered with the threads of judgment and scorn. When a confrontation with a colleague erupted in a particularly intense exchange, her fears materialized into words that sliced through her resolve. Are you just going to abandon your patients for some romantic notion of home? Their voice echoed in her mind, igniting a tempest of self-doubt. As she struggled to reconcile the drive for her family's legacy with her commitment to caring for others, the turmoil swelled within her. Emily balled her fists, grappling with the ghosts of her past, shackled by expectation, yearning for validation that felt forever out of reach. Just when she thought she had found her footing, another letter revealed an unsettling family secret, one that had the potential to reshape her quest for acceptance and belonging. A tidal wave of unease crashed through her heart. What if this truth unraveled everything she had believed about her identity? The path forward grew murky, but one thought emerged. Would she finally dare to confront her true self? The journey ahead was just beginning. The dust motes still swirled in the air as Emily clutched the letter, its fragile paper crinkling between her fingers. It contained a revelation about her grandmother that pierced through the veil of nostalgia. Her grandmother had harbored dreams of becoming an artist, a passion suppressed by the shackles of life as responsibilities. Emily's heart raced. She realized this wasn't just a simple heirloom. It was a challenge to embrace her dreams as her grandmother had never been able to. She closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the old farmhouse's ghosts pressing down on her. They beckoned for her to act, to untangle the bonds of expectation and forge something new. But what did that mean for her life as a nurse? A surge of conflicting emotions washed over her. Each shift felt more like a commitment to others than to herself. Burning time she could be using to breathe life back into the farmhouse and into her own aspirations. Back in the break room, the fluorescent lights flickered like her resolve. The whispers and judgment from her colleagues had become more audible, especially after seeing her distracted during shifts. Her patients deserved more than a divided heart. Yet, what if her pursuit of something greater, art, healing, home, could breathe new life into her nursing practice? Emily saw a glimmer of light as she envisioned bridging her worlds. She could use art as therapy, a medium to nurture both her passion and her patients. It ignited a spark of determination within her, but self-doubt swiftly climbed back to strangle it. Would she be ridiculed for this ambition? Would her colleagues see it as yet another frivolous endeavor? Mustering courage, she decided to take one small step. On her next day off, she grabbed her sketchbook and a set of colored pencils, something she hadn't touched in years, and made her way back to the farmhouse. The untouched canvas of peeling walls and weathered would whisper possibilities. Sitting amidst this sea of memories, she began to sketch, capturing the broken beauty around her, the ghosts merging into forms of color and light. Time flowed differently as she lost herself in the strokes of her pencil. It was in that creative trance she felt her grandmother's spirit urging her towards authenticity. A single tear slipped down her cheek. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt connected both to her family's legacy and to her own dreams. However, an unsettling thought niggled at the edges of her mind. What if this act of reclaiming her identity further fueled the judgment she long dreaded? After all, she still had a nursing job to uphold, a responsibility to patients that could easily be compromised. Could balancing a blossoming artistic side with her nursing career truly be possible? Or was it destined to become another source of guilt and self-reproach? Finding clarity amidst the rising tide of conflict would demand resilience and might open portals she never thought possible. Emily took a deep breath and closed her eyes, envisioning what embracing both roles would feel like. Would she have the bravery to fight against the tides of expectation, or would she sink back into self-doubt? As she looked down at her sketches, uncertainty creeped back into her heart. The challenge ahead was monumental. The question loomed larger than ever. Was she ready to confront not just her own dreams, but also the judgment that might come with them? The path was fraught with ambiguity, but Emily knew one thing. She wouldn't shy away from discovering the full spectrum of her identity. With her eyes fixed on her work, she vowed to forge ahead, but a faint echo of doubt hung in the air. Just as she dipped her pen into fresh ink, her phone buzzed with a message, revealing an unexpected visitor from her past, someone whose arrival might change everything. Emily blinked at the screen, the message pulling her abruptly from a world of ink and personal resurrection. She hesitated, the weight of her sketches momentarily forgotten. The name appeared like a mirror held to her past Lucas. As a whirlwind of memories surged, the echo of laughter, late-night talks under the stars, and aspirations shared flickered like old film images in her mind. He was the one who had always nudged her towards her creative potential, who saw beauty where she saw flaws. Could he be the catalyst she now needed? With a shaky breath, she tapped the screen to see the full message. "Hey, Emily. I'm in town for a few days. Can we meet?" Her heart raced. It had been years since they'd last spoken, since she had willingly buried those dreams alongside him. And yet, something in her soul stirred with the possibility that he had come to challenge and inspire her. The doubt that had clung to her like a wet blanket flickered. Maybe this was the push she needed to solidify her resolve. With renewed determination, she texted back, agreeing to meet at the local cafe. As she drove through familiar streets, each curve and corner pulled at her heart. The cafe bustled with life and laughter, a sharp contrast to her current internal struggle. She spotted him at a table, his familiar silhouette framed against the window, sunlight casting a golden halo around him. He looked different, but still had that same infectious smile, a warmth that sparked old feelings she had tried to suppress. "Emily," he exclaimed as she approached, and the sound of her name was a balm over years of self-imposed isolation. "Lucas." The words slipped from her lips, thick with echoes of history. They exchanged pleasantries, laughter flowing easily, but soon, as the conversation turned deeper, Emily felt the fissures in her heart expose themselves. She shared stories of her nursing career, of the patients who depended on her, of the letter from her grandmother, and the newfound passion she was trying to revive. Lucas listened intently, nodding, but then his brow furrowed as he interjected, "But it sounds like you're still holding back, Emily. If your grandmother's art could speak, what would it say about you living for her dreams, too?" The question pierced through her carefully constructed barriers. Her pulse quickened as she faced the reality of her own discomfort about merging her career with her passion. "I just don't know if it's practical. Nursing is what people expect of me. Art seems so frivolous in comparison." "Frivolous?" Lucas challenged gently. "Wasn't he there a time when art felt like freedom for you? Maybe blending them isn't just about pursuing one over the other. It could amplify who you are." She wrestled with his words, warmth and inspiration battling her internal conflict. What would it mean to her to not just dream, but transform her reality? As the conversation flowed, the walls around her heart started to crumble, and flashes of her grandmother's unfulfilled dreams intertwined with her own. The prospect of drawing not only her past, but also her future began to take form. Nursing was her duty, but art could be her release, a healing vehicle for herself and her patients. "How do you reconcile the two?" she asked, her vulnerability revealing her quest for understanding. Lucas leaned in, a knowing glimmer in his eyes. "You embrace them both, Emily. Live in the duality. Each can nourish the other." The cafe faded as a vision emerged. She could see herself integrating art into her nursing, the healing power of color and creativity restoring not just hope, but her spirit. But just then, a sudden wave of apprehension washed over her. How would her colleagues react? Would they understand? Would they support her infusion of creativity into a profession that thrived on protocols and procedures? With a deep breath, she prepared to navigate the doubts that clung to her. The path forward was still veiled in uncertainty, but the faint echoes of her grandmother's artistic spirit entwined with her own newfound fire urged her forward. As their conversation deepened, the ideas swirled, leaving her breathless with possibility. But just as she was ready to embrace this hybrid identity, Lucas leaned back, his gaze shifting toward the door. A familiar figure entered, and her heart plummeted. The moment of truth was dawning, and the stakes had never felt higher. Emily's heart raced as she turned to see the newcomer. It was Dr. Reynolds, her supervisor, a figure of authority, cloaked in scrubs and an air of expectation that emanated from her. A skilled nurse and a staunch advocate for traditional medical protocols, Dr. Reynolds represented everything Emily had been hesitant to embrace in her dual aspirations. "Emily, there you are," Dr. Reynolds called out, a smile plastered on her face. "I was hoping to find you. We need you at the hospital for the new training program starting next week." Emily's mind whirled, the warm feeling from her earlier conversation with Lucas suddenly eclipsed by the impending pressure of her obligations. "I'll be there," she managed to reply, but the words hung heavy like an albatross around her neck. Lucas watched the interaction unfold, aware of the conflict brewing in Emily's eyes. "You were talking about integrating your art into your nursing," he prompted gently but firmly, as if coaxing her back to the flames of her earlier conviction. Right, she said, the spark dimming. But the reality of nursing, with all its clinical rigor, stood starkly against the fantasies of merging her passions. Dr. Reynolds' voice echoed in her mind, often dissuading creativity as a distraction from patient care. I don't think there is space for both, Emily whispered, more to herself than to Lucas. Lucas leaned closer, intensity radiating from him like energy. Emily, this is a moment that defines you. Don't lose sight of what you want just because it's uncomfortable. What if your art can enhance patient care? What if it helps someone find their voice? You have this power inside you. Intrigued, yet overwhelmed, she considered the scenarios Lucas painted with his words. She envisioned a patient afraid of a procedure, surrounded by walls of sterile white. Could a splash of color, a painting hung in their room, offer comfort? The thoughts swirled, igniting a flicker of excitement amid the fading embers of her doubts. But then the nagging self-saboteur in her mind galloped forth. What if it fails? What if your colleagues ridicule you? What if you aren't good enough? Emily met Lucas's unwavering gaze and saw a certainty that she craved. I can't just throw caution to the wind, she replied, her voice trembling. Maybe it's not about throwing caution, but about taking a calculated risk, he countered. You've always been good at balancing your responsibilities. You can do this, take small steps. As Lucas's words washed over her, Emily's internal resistance began to crumble further. Small steps. She had always believed in the power of gradual change, in nurturing seeds of hope until they blossomed. Perhaps that was a sustainable path forward. Okay, she murmured, her voice gaining strength, small steps. Just then, her eyes drifted to Dr. Reynolds, who was now engrossed in conversation with another nurse. A wave of unease washed over her. Could she risk voicing her plans with her supervisor? The fear of being dismissed threatened to extinguish the burgeoning flame inside her. What if I share my ideas with her? Emily mused aloud, her voice barely a whisper. Lucas raised an eyebrow, clearly enthused by her emerging assertiveness. Why not? What do you have to lose? His encouragement proved stabilizing. The idea that she could walk the line between her nursing responsibilities and her artistic dreams felt tantalizing, yet hauntingly risky. Each moment spent in contemplation deepened her awareness of both potential and drawbacks. Emily's heart rate quickened. This was no longer just about career aspirations. It was about her identity, her courage to embrace the duality that had once felt so daunting. Tonight, I'll draft a proposal, she resolved, emboldened. The challenge ahead was daunting, but perhaps this confrontation with Dr. Reynolds would serve as the crucible for her ambitions to ignite. As they continued to speak, their conversation interweaving nostalgia and ambition, Emily felt the fabric of her life begin to shift. She could grasp the thread of her grandmother's spirit woven through her. Dreams, each stroke a testament to the life waiting to be unleashed. Just then, a new wave of anxiety rolled in with the arrival of a question that had loomed in the back of her mind all along. Was she truly ready to expose herself, her creativity, her aspirations? With a determined gulp, she breathed deep, steeling herself for the crossroads ahead. Would this leap of faith into authenticity lead her to new heights? The weight of the choice was colossal, but the burden of unacted dreams loomed larger. It was time to confront the implications of her dual life, and as she looked towards Lucas, eyes gleaming with shared visions, she felt fortified by one undeniable truth. She must act. But could she succeed without losing the essence of the nurse they expected her to be? The question hung between them like an unspoken promise, both thrilling and terrifying, as she prepared to make her next breakthrough. In the stillness of her bedroom that night, Emily fidgeted with her sketchbook, the pages smooth and blank before her. The pen felt foreign in her hand, heavy with the weight of expectation not just from Dr. Reynolds, but from the vision of herself she so desperately wished to embrace. Her heart pounded a rhythmic beat of doubt as she closed her eyes, imagining the proposal she was about to draft. Could this piece of paper hold the key to her transformation? She envisioned a different kind of patient care, one that threaded her skill in nursing with her passion for art. The more she pondered, the more exuberant her thoughts became. Colors danced through her mind, laughing at the institutional gray that had boxed her in for so long. This was no longer just about painting. It was a revolution waiting to unfold. But the specter of Dr. Reynolds loomed large, her voice echoing a relentless mantra. Nursing is a science. How could she, an aspiring artist in a sterile world, convince someone so entrenched in tradition to see things differently? The fear of ridicule clawed at her, but it was countered by a newfound determination. Each line she drafted felt like a testament to a dual identity she had fought to reconcile. As Emily scribbled down her ideas, she felt the fire spark within her. She articulated her vision of transforming hospital rooms into spaces of healing with art, inviting patients to engage with their emotions and surroundings. A mural for the pediatric ward, calming watercolors for oncology rooms ideas spilled out, fueled by the thrill of potential. But behind that thrill lay the fear of disappointment should her proposal be rejected. What if her colleagues dismissed her as naive? What if Dr. Reynolds ridiculed her aspirations? The intensity of her emotions wavered, caught between growth and fear. Still, inertia was not an option. She would rather risk rejection than live with the haunting question of what if. Finally, the proposal took shape, but as she read it back, a knot of anxiety tightened in her chest. Would it be enough? Was it coherent enough to persuade a woman like Dr. Reynolds, who rarely entertained anything outside conventional methods? Emily pushed through her self-doubt, reminding herself of Lucas S. words about balance and small steps. This proposal, however tentative, was indeed her first step toward a larger vision, one she was wholly capable of manifesting. Dawn sliced through her window, illuminating her room in a soft glow. The decision was made. She would present it. The anticipation felt like standing on a high wire, balancing between fear and freedom. She gathered her supplies and fortified herself with coffee, replaying every moment with Lucas, their conversations infused with hope and practical encouragement. His confidence in her has become her fuel, replacing the discouragement she'd felt before. Arriving at the hospital, Emily's heart raced as she navigated the sterile corridors, a sense of impending confrontation pooling in her stomach. She spotted Dr. Reynolds in the staff lounge, deep in conversation with a group of nurses. Would she dare interrupt? Courage surged within her, a newfound strength ignited by her commitment to her dual calling. As she approached, Emily's resolve solidified. She would present her proposal, come what may. The moment felt pivotal, as if she were standing at the precipice of change, ready to leap into the unknown. Her voice quivered slightly as she cleared her throat, drawing the attention of the group. Dr. Reynolds, she began, each word tinged with both excitement and trepidation. I have some ideas for a program that integrates art into patient care, but her voice was suddenly drowned out by the nurse of the group, someone she knew well. That sounds ridiculous. Art in healthcare? ISN teen nursing about science? As laughter rippled through the group, Emily felt her stomach drop. The dismissal struck harder than she anticipated. In that moment, her ambition felt fragile, potentially crushed beneath the weight of judgment. Would she find a way to rise above the mockery, or would her courage falter? Determined not to let the laughter derail her, she prepared for a confrontation that might redefine her professional identity. But did she truly have the strength to face such ridicule? The question loomed, heavy and daunting, while a well of resolve began to rise within her once more. The crossroads was real, and the path forward lay ahead unforgiving, yet ripe with possibility. Would she stand tall, claiming her place in both worlds she had always longed to belong to? Emily's heart thundered in her chest as she braced herself against the uproar of laughter echoing in the staff lounge. Each chuckle felt like a shackle, trying to bind her to the expectations of a world she desperately wanted to reshape. For a fleeting moment, she questioned her sanity. Who was she to intertwine art with the foundations of medicine? But then, a flicker of that earlier fire ignited within her. whispering of the importance of her vision. She inhaled deeply, grounding herself in the knowledge that every great idea had once been met with skepticism. Clenching her sketchbook tightly against her chest, Emily focused on Dr. Reynolds, who had turned her gaze from the jovial group to the newcomer. Her expression was immovable, but there was a glimmer of curiosity lurking beneath the surface. "Can we discuss this somewhere quieter?" Emily asserted, her voice steadying as she sought to meet Dr. Reynolds' gaze. The laughter died down, replaced by the inquisitive glances of her colleagues. The decision to confront doubt became a lifeline, pulling her back into the moment. Dr. Reynolds frowned slightly, a flicker of resistance evident in her demeanor. "If it's important to you, Emily, then let us hear it," she replied, her tone clipped but not dismissive. With measured intent, Emily nodded, leading the way to a more private corridor adorned with faded motivational posters and sterile walls that felt increasingly suffocating. Once alone, Emily took another deep breath, grounding herself in the reasons behind her proposal, visualizing the murals and calming colors. "Thank you for giving me a moment," she began. "I want to propose a pilot program that encourages emotional healing through art in patient care. There's growing evidence that creative expression can foster healing in ways traditional methods may not." As she experienced the words falling from her lips, the stabs of uncertainty dulled. She slid her sketchbook onto a nearby ledge, opening it to reveal her carefully crafted designs. Imagine interactive displays in pediatric wards or calming portraits in oncology rooms to help ease anxiety. Dr. Reynolds' brow furrowed as she examined the sketches. Emily observed the clinical determination of the older woman's expression, trying to bridge the chasm between their differing perspectives. Art isn't just decoration. It invites patients to process their emotions, transforming their environment into a refuge. Emily pressed on, passion seeping into her voice. "We spend so much time focusing on science that we often neglect the soul of healing." For a heartbeat, silence enveloped them, and Emily's pulse quickened while hope and fear intermingled. "I appreciate your enthusiasm, Emily, but nursing is built upon evidence-based practices," Dr. Reynolds countered, though there was less bite in her words. "Science can embrace creativity too." Emily snapped back, the surge of defiance rattling her. "Isn't it worth trying something new, even if it feels unorthodox? Sometimes the best innovations come from a blend of boundaries that seem irreconcilable. My experience with patients has shown me that health and wellness are more than just tangible vitals. They require emotional engagement." With each word, her conviction crystallized, sharpening her aim. She had entered this confrontation with fear, but emerged with a burning conviction that this proposal could shatter the walls surrounding their practices. Yet as she scanned Dr. Reynolds' face, the skepticism lingered. Could she persuade her? "What evidence do you have to support this?" Dr. Reynolds leaned back against the wall, crossing her arms, leaving Emily standing at the threshold of their differing worlds. Armed with data from research studies and testimonials, Emily's heart raced again. This was her moment to layer science firmly beneath her aspirations. "I have studies and resources," she replied, pulling a small folder from her bag. "They outline how art therapy reduces stress levels and promotes healing. The outcomes speak for themselves." The potential for a long debate loomed, laden with the weight of tradition and the allure of change. As Dr. Reynolds examined the first page, Emily held her breath, poised at the intersection of her dreams and professional duty. This was only the beginning. If the path forward included navigating the jagged terrain of skepticism, then she would shape it not just for herself, but for countless others who would benefit from a system willing to embrace both care and creativity. And as she considered their emerging dialogue, she felt the gears of her resolve turning. Could this encounter change more than just her fate, but also that of an entire ward? In the stillness that followed, she pondered the true price of innovation. How far would she go to bring her vision to life? And just at that moment, a flicker of inspiration struck her a thought that perhaps Dr. Reynolds held unexpected reservoirs of empathy and hope buried beneath years of constraints. Would this lead to a breakthrough, or would it signal her unraveling? As Emily watched Dr. Reynolds peruse her research, a glimmer of hope flickered in her chest. This wasn't just a pitched battle over creative therapy. It was a chance to renovate the very framework of patient care. In that moment, she realized she wasn't merely defending a thesis. She was planting the seeds for potential growth that could sway institutional direction. Her emotions swirled, a mixture of trepidation and a burgeoning excitement for change. Dr. Reynolds' focus remained on the studies. Each second stretched endlessly, and Emily mentally rehearsed her next steps, prepared to respond to the skepticism looming in the room. A sudden itch of doubt scratched at her resolve. Had she overstepped? Was her vision too grand? Divorced from the realities of medical precision? Emily, these are intriguing. Dr. Reynolds finally glanced up, her expression softening slightly. But we can't ignore the accountability we carry toward our patients. What happens if the therapy doesn't yield results? You understand how stringent protocols are in clinical settings. The tension in Emily's shoulders eased just a fraction. This was her opening. Every mentor had mentioned the importance of anticipating concerns. This was a chance to navigate through them. I do understand, but consider this. How many patients leave the hospital feeling unheard or unseen? What if a well-placed piece of art could speak to them, perhaps even before a doctor does? Dr. Reynolds studied her, weighing the implications of the idea. Emily's heart quickened when she saw a shift in her eyes, a burgeoning flicker of curiosity replacing pure skepticism. Emily pressed on, shifting the conversation towards a more collaborative tone. What if we started with a smaller pilot? Just a few pieces in the oncology unit, enough to gather feedback and assess impact over time. We could track anxiety levels, patient feedback, and even emotional engagement metrics. Though still cautious, Dr. Reynolds tilted her head, intrigued by the practicality of the suggestion. You're not suggesting we change the entire hospital overnight? Not all. This could be our testing ground to see if integrating art can coexist with our existing practices. We can prescribe art like we prescribe medicine an adjunct, a supplement. Each word felt clearer, sharper, more loaded with intent. This was how change could happen incrementally and with data to support it. Even so, there will be opposition. The weighing of thoughts was visible in Dr. Reynolds' furrowed brow. Some of my colleagues may not be as receptive. They will see creativity as fluff, another distraction from their focus on medicine. Emily's resolve solidified. Every innovation faces opposition. But every major leap in treatment stems from someone daring to confront the status quo. We hold responsibility not just to treat illness, but to nurture well-being holistically. It's more than a medical issue. It's a human one. She could see the walls that Dr. Reynolds habitually built begin to crack, just a little. And how do we measure success? You mentioned tracking anxiety, what metrics would effectively prove it works. Emily felt the familiar rush of adrenaline, the thrill of tackling her thoughts head-on. We could create surveys addressing emotional responses before and after exposure to art. Engage patients in conversations about their experiences. Combine qualitative data with measurable outcomes to present to stakeholders. All of this links back to evidence-based practice. With every point she made, Emily felt her confidence swell like a rising tide, erasing traces of hesitation from before. The idea of redefining care seemed less like a Herculean task and more like an inevitable choice. Dr. Reynolds nodded slowly, a visible contemplation brewing within her. For the first time, the faintest smile crossed her lips. It's ambitious, Emily. I admire that. If this is to be a success, it will take all of us championing the cause. You'll need our staff on board, and perhaps more importantly, the patients. Yes, exactly. Emily's voice brightened with determination, the tone echoing off the sterile walls. This should be patient-led. We will let their voices guide the program. But just as she felt the embrace of possibility, doubt threaded back through her mind. Would the other nurses share their journey? And even if Dr. Reynolds was swayed, What if the outcomes starkly contrasted her expectations? With burgeoning hope clashing against the undercurrent of anxiety, Emily resolved to not merely propose a change, but to advocate for a movement within the sphere of healthcare that placed the human experience front and center. As they discussed the next steps, potential hurdles lingered eerily on the peripheral. If this were a journey fraught with opposition and defense, how would Emily uphold her vision amidst the storm? Just then, an unexpected thought flickered across her mind. What if the resistance she feared could also become the catalyst for unity? What if she could discover allies she never anticipated? With her heart pounding with purpose, she felt the pull toward the next stage, an invitation to advocate her vision to the broader nursing staff. This was where her resolve would truly be tested. Could she ignite the fire of collaboration and transform skepticism into passion? The prospect both thrilled and terrified her. Would she emerge as a pioneer of change, or would she simply fade into obscurity? Emily took a deep breath, steadying herself against the wall of the conference room. The air was thick with possibility, a harsh contrast to the sterile smell of antiseptic surrounding her. As she prepared to advocate for her vision to the nursing staff, she felt the weight of the moment. It was one thing to discuss ideas with Dr. Reynolds, another entirely to face a room full of seasoned professionals who might view her as an idealistic novice. She glanced at the stack of notes clutched in her hand, a tentative plan laid out before her like a road map to uncharted territory. The goal was simple, yet daunting. Convey her vision clearly, spark interest, and kindle enthusiasm within a group that had likely grown accustomed to the status quo. But as she practiced her opening lines in her mind, a nagging voice questioned her readiness. What if they resisted? What if they felt threatened by her ideas? In her reflection, Emily heard a quiet reminder: real change rarely emerged without discomfort. She recalled the vision she had chased through endless hours of research, the endless poring over qualitative narratives, the electrifying explosion of inspiration that came when defying tradition. That same feeling swirled inside her as she pushed herself to walk through the door and into the conference room where her colleagues gathered. As she entered, the room fell silent, the staff turning their attention to her expectantly. Among them was Sarah, a nurse whose pragmatic approach often overshadowed any inclination towards creative solutions. The tension was palpable, the familiarity of her environment both comforting and stifling. It was a double-edged sword. She felt at home, yet utterly exposed. "Thank you all for being here," Emily began, her voice firmer than she anticipated. "I know change can feel daunting, but today I want to discuss how integrating art into our patient care could positively impact our patients' experiences." Sarah crossed her arms, a skeptical brow raised. "Art? You want to replace proven medical practices with what? Murals and song?" Emily's heart raced, but she welcomed the challenge. Not replace, but enhance. Studies show a striking correlation between art and emotional healing. I propose a pilot program to introduce art into our oncology unit and track its impact on patient anxiety and recovery. The murmurs began, skepticism mingling with intrigue. Emily watched as grains of curiosity mixed with doubt played out on her coworkers' faces. She leveraged this moment, inviting the hesitant to engage. Imagine a patient who has spent days in silence, surrounded by walls that seem to close in. What if a painting could spark a conversation or elicit a smile? What if, instead of becoming just another statistic, they felt seen? Emily saw Sarah shift slightly, her posture softening. The tension in the room began to dissipate. As she shared her vision, Emily made sure to cite evidence and share anecdotes from patients to illustrate her points. Each story resonated, conjuring the faces of those they had cared for, threading a shared reality into the fabric of her proposal. Another nurse, Jordan, shifted in his seat. But how do we ensure that we're prioritizing patient care? Art is subjective, and not everyone interprets it the same way. It's true, Emily acknowledged, sensing the need to embrace the complexity of her proposition. But this isn't about prescribing art. It's about evaluation and feedback. We will measure emotional responses and adjust the implementation based on patient preferences. This will be a collaborative process. The murmurs of dissent transformed into suggestions. Questions arose, concerns voiced. And through it all, Emily recognized an undercurrent of willingness, a subtle shift from resistance toward exploration. As she concluded her presentation, the atmosphere buzzed with possibilities, and just as she felt the tide of acceptance turning, Sarah's voice cut through. You say you want feedback, but not everyone will be on your side. How do we navigate that when push comes to shove? Emily's heart sank, momentarily at the reminder of potential opposition. But then another thought sparked. What if we view dissenting voices not as challenges, but as opportunities for growth? History shows us that the most profound change often arises from debate. We can build bridges by fostering dialogue, accepting criticism, and evolving together. After an extended silence, the room began to slowly nod in agreement. Emily concluded with a spark of enthusiasm, aware that she had ignited an idea that could grow beyond her own expectations. The vote to initiate the pilot was a step forward, yet resistance still loomed on the horizon. How would Emily manage the shifting dynamics of support and skepticism as she embarked on this untested path? More importantly, how would she motivate not just her colleagues, but also the patients who would be the crux of this transformative journey? With her vision outlined and potential allies emerging, Emily felt a familiar whisper of resolve rise within her. The real test was just beginning, and navigating the storm ahead would require more than individual ambition. Each day would unveil unexpected challenges demanding creativity, resilience, and the capacity to confront her own fears. And as the echoes of her colleagues' murmurs settled into a calm anticipation, Emily sensed an important truth. The greatest transformations often start with a single voice. Would her voice sustain that momentum in the face of adversity, or would it falter under the weight of doubt? The uncertainty loomed, promising that this was only the beginning. Emily stepped out of the conference room, her heart still racing, but a thread of exhilaration weaving itself through the veil of anxiety. She had overcome a significant hurdle, but the future loomed larger than the room behind her. Each conversation with her colleagues felt like a finely spun bridge, fragile yet vital, and she knew she was at the precipice of something deeper. Out in the hallway, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the glass panels that lined the corridor. The energy of the meeting still pulsed in her veins, and when she looked closer, she saw a determination hardening behind her eyes. The initial acceptance from her peers had ignited something within, fueling her ambition to push forward despite the murmurs of doubt she anticipated from others. She settled at her usual desk, a haven amidst the chaos of movements and voices. As she opened her laptop, ideas surged like a river breaking through a dam. She began outlining detailed strategies for the pilot program, envisioning sessions where patients could engage with art beyond the conventional. But just as she delved into logistics, reality collided with her idealism. How would she address the entrenched norms and yield enough trust to bridge the gap between skepticism and belief? Her fingers paused, not out of hesitation, but to gather the fragments of doubt swirling in her thoughts. The viewpoints of her colleagues, like Sarah, who represented a stalwart of tradition, loomed. What if they pushed back fiercely? She shook her head, brushing the thought aside. The greatest innovations often received the fiercest critiques. Over the next few days, Emily initiated one-on-one conversations with her colleagues, each attempt a mixture of excitement and dread. With every discussion, she found threads of support, the recognition of shared goals buried under layers of routine. Jordan, initially skeptical, revealed a soft spot for creative expressions after sharing his son's passion for painting. Even Sarah, who epitomized resistance, expressed a desire to understand the emotional landscape Emily aimed to enrich. As she felt the tide slowly turning, an exciting yet daunting realization dawned upon her. Emily was embarking not just on a project, but a journey of transformation, both for herself and those around her. Yet, As the realization glimmered, dread sneaked back in. What about those who wouldn't embrace it no matter how well she articulated her vision? How would she deal with unwavering resistance? That night, Emily found herself unable to sleep. Thoughts swirled like a tempest, each one sharpening her resolve while dampening her spirit. The challenge wasn't merely about integrating art into patient care. It was navigating the complex human emotions tethered to it. Existing protocols carried weight, but attitudes carried influence. The next day, she decided to confront Sarah directly in a way she hadn't considered before. Instead of simply pushing her ideas, she would invite her to the discussion, deconstruct the barriers together. When Emily approached Sarah, she opted for vulnerability, admitting her own apprehensions, and asked for her insights. That moment was critical. Would Sarah engage as an ally or remain a formidable opponent? Her heart thudded in her chest. Every second felt like a damning silence. "Emily," Sarah began, looking her in the eye. "I respect your initiative, but I want to ensure we're not overlooking patients who might not connect with art in the way you envision." "Exactly," Emily replied, her voice steadying. "Help me understand the concerns, and let us make sure we address those. This has to work for everyone, not just for me." As they discussed, Emily felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps her determination would inspire not just alliances, but real reconciliations between diverse perspectives. Still, the uncertainty loomed. How would they meld differing viewpoints into a cohesive practice? That remained to be seen, but Emily resolved to gather insights from every corner, preparing herself to defend the vision she held dear. The following week, she scheduled a workshop to gather feedback, extending an olive branch to those who might oppose, and her pulse quickened with the anticipation of what it might yield. Would her efforts bear fruit, or would she face more resistance than ever before? The workshop was a gamble, a chance to confront or convert doubts into dialogue. As she set the date, a creeping thought unfurled in her belly. The true test of her ability to lead and influence would be revealed, and as much as she felt the weight of that moment, it was also liberating. Tomorrow would lay the groundwork for either triumph or tumult. Emily took a deep breath, ready to embrace whatever outcome awaited her. The only thing that echoed louder than her uncertainty was another realization. In the balance of dialogue lay the potential for an entirely new beginning. But would she crumble under the pressure or emerge transformed through this trial? The day of the workshop arrived, and Emily stood before a crowd of her colleagues, a mix of anticipation and apprehension crackling in the air. The conference room, usually a space of clinical discussions, buzzed with an undercurrent of uncertainty. She could feel the weight of their stares, each gaze a reminder of her potential for both acceptance and rejection. As Emily began her presentation, her voice resonated, filled with clarity and purpose. Today, we're here to explore how art can enhance our patient care experiences. I want to hear what you think, your reservations, and your ideas. Let us make this an open dialogue. She delivered her vision succinctly, sharing compelling evidence from research studies alongside heartfelt anecdotes from patients. She'd encountered stories of healing that transcended prescriptions. As she spoke, she felt a shift in the room's energy. Skepticism mingled with curiosity, igniting a small spark among the group. As the presentation flowed into discussion, individuals who once seemed anchored in their skepticism began to speak. Jordan posed thoughtful questions, and even Sarah surprised Emily with insight regarding logistical hurdles they might face. One by one, voices rose from the crowd, creating an unexpected tapestry of collaboration. Emily realized this wasn't just her vision. It was becoming theirs too, a collective nurture of possibilities. Art might not resonate with every patient, Sarah offered cautiously, but perhaps integrating it alongside traditional care methods could offer a holistic approach. We can invite feedback continually. Emily's heart soared. This was precisely the type of dialogue she had envisioned. She encouraged every opinion, every critique, weaving their diverse perspectives into her vision. By the workshop's end, The air was thick with an excitement that hadn't existed before. Emily proposed forming a committee to integrate art initiatives into patient care, ensuring everyone's voices would shape the initiative's growth. The vote was met with overwhelming support, and for the first time in an age, she felt potential radiating through walls that had previously felt confining. Recognition wasn't immediate, but as her colleagues applauded her initiative, Emily felt the acknowledgement of her growth simmering beneath the surface. They were no longer mere colleagues and hospital scrubs, but collaborators in nurturing something greater. Reflecting on her journey in the quiet of her bedroom that night, the echoes of doubt faded, illuminated by clarity. She had not only proposed an innovative program, she had emerged as a leader, illustrating that vulnerability and collaboration were the hallmarks of authentic professional transformation. The following weeks were exhilarating yet demanding. As the art integration pilot launched, Emily led brainstorming sessions, involving patients and staff alike. The initiative blossomed, incorporating patient artwork, interactive displays, and emotional storytelling sessions. Responses transcended initial expectations. Patients began sharing their art with each other, forming connections that provided solace during hospital stays. Emily documented each episode of growth, rounding up testimonials and data to gauge emotional shifts over time. Her expansive vision was beginning to take tangible shape. One afternoon, as she reviewed patient feedback, she spotted a familiar name, a young girl who once hesitated to speak, now expressing herself through paint. Emily's heart swelled with pride. This was not just about art. It was about healing the unseen wounds and shaping a new standard of care. Such revelations buoyed her resolve, reflecting the profound lessons learned during her journey. She had to confront the naysayers, navigate opposition, and embrace the multifaceted nature of her identity, not merely a nurse and an artist, but a bridge linking creativity to care. One evening, Dr. Reynolds called Emily into her office after reviewing pilot program results. Her expression was measured but curious. "Emily, I just wanted to express my appreciation. The feedback on art therapy has yielded remarkable responses. Anxiety levels actually dropped in the oncology unit. You were right. Innovation stems from courage." The recognition solidified Emily's confidence. "Thank you, Dr. Reynolds," she replied, holding the moment in her heart, gratitude enveloping her. She had conquered the doubts that hauntingly clung to her. Later, she sat in the small farmhouse, her grandmother's aura alive in her art studio, where every stroke brought her closer to the vibrant dreams of both generations. Emily sketched not just images, but the idea of a future where healing intertwined with expression. As she closed her sketchbook, she felt a sense of deep fulfillment wash over her. Emily Turner had achieved what once seemed unattainable. She had transformed herself into a well-rounded, creative professional. Her ambition fused with her duty, and the path ahead sparkled with limitless potential. With renewed purpose, she faced the future, a future where she would continue to lead with courage, combining her two passions to create a legacy as vibrant as life itself. The journey had come into glorious fruition. Emily felt solid confidence, embraced her recognized competence, and established her position not just as a nurse, but as an innovator reshaping the landscape of healthcare. The moment had come full circle. She knew she could conquer anything that lay ahead. Now, it's your time to take action. You need to subscribe now to stay updated on these empowering stories of transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure more inspiring content reaches those who need it. Comment down below with your thoughts and theories about Emily's journey and what you would have done in her position. And don't wait even one more second. Share this story with at least 5 friends who are on their own paths of overcoming adversity. Together, let us spread the light of hope.